Great. Do you know if Long is going to join us or not?
I'm not sure. Should I ask her?
Sure.
Or just let her know where we're at?
She's here. She's here. Brilliant. I think we're all here on this end. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, good. Just making sure we didn't lose you somehow. Thanks.
No.
I will find the article. How was the chat?
Huh?
How was the chat?
I think it's going to survive
Yeah.
because he said it is left.
Right.
But they don't know why and how and what. They don't know the details yet. So this is like happened overnight here.
Yeah.
I think it happened yesterday.
It's just some technical difference. Yeah.
Now you see why I don't like color. I think we can get started. In the room here, I have Trevor, Firat, Shaoling, Nina, Todd, Ergin, and Kirk. And on the call, I have Craig Willis from UIUC, Claudio, Diana, Elizabeth, Hughie, Jeff. I see Julie on the call too. Nansu, Stephen. Did I miss anybody? Craig, do you want to introduce the folks, your team who are in the room with you?
Oh, yeah. So we've got Michael Lambert, who's a research programmer at MCSA, and Thuong Phan, who's joined us she's a master's student at the iSchool here. And Garrick can't be with us. He's traveling today.
Okay. Did I miss anybody else from the BioCADI team, from the CDT? No. Okay. Yuling is also on the call. So we just get started. On the agenda today, first we talk briefly about action items from our last call. And then we have the pilot project presentation that Craig will present, and he's going to talk about his system that they had submitted for the BioCADI IR challenge. After which, if time permits, I guess we would like to talk about the FAIR supplement. I sent out the aims of the FAIR supplement as well as their latest update, that PowerPoint that I received from Elizabeth to the CDT. I don't know if anybody's gone over it or not, but we do need to talk about what we need to do from our end to be able to implement what's being given to us by the supplement folks, as well as what the scope is. I think we need to define that. And also, if Alejandra or Philippe are on the call, and I don't see them, they wanted to talk about that implementation in terms of the fact that, I mean, I think I can talk a little bit more about
Probably
what we
second
talked
floor.
about when we
There?
met.
Theater.
Yeah, it would be
Cal IT Theater.
whoever took over for Trish. So,
Hello?
no idea. You're looking for Fourth Road.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
I called him.
Hello?
Can you hear us? Can you hear me now?
There'll be a desk when you walk right out.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure who this is.
This is Yueling. Sorry.
Link?
Yep.
Okay, hi.
Yueling from UCSD.
Yeah, hi. Okay. So going back, I think if they do get on the call, then we want to have this discussion, but we can talk about it a little later. And I think that's all we'll have time for. If we do have time, then we can talk about the updates for DataMed version 3. So for the action items, we are working on the complete reindexing with the updated NLP pipeline. Jeff, do you have any updates?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost. I think we're down to some of the largest sources now, and so everything we've done has been forwarded to Xiaoling, I believe, and so I think
I received about 50 update index.
Yeah. And so Barack's been out sick, so he's when he gets back, I'll double check, what are the final ones that have to.
But so far there have been no issues, right?
No, there was sorry, there was we're still seeing a very minor memory leak,
Okay.
but we're able to run through a number of sources, so it's much improved over the last time. So.
Okay. Yeah, so I think once we have this, then we probably want to talk about updating the repositories as the next step once we are done with this. And also we'll have a better idea, right, Jeff, of how long it takes to run through a whole repository.
Yep.
Okay. And just also to let you know, right now we do not have any more of our GRAs who can do the mapping for us. So we have not been ingesting and indexing any repositories except for one that Pratik finished, right?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
That's the only one we will do. And then since it's summer and a lot of our GRAs actually graduate, we don't have any more people that can actually do the mapping. So with the data type ontology, I do not have any updates yet from Alejandra and Philippe. Hopefully we will get it a little later. I'll follow up with them again. I did try to follow up with them, but I heard that they've been fairly busy with the paper and other things that they've been working on, so they're going to get back to this soon. With the schema.org annotations, Firas, any updates?
It's still the same. We don't have updates on schema.org, but we finished the test installation
Right.
and documentation.
Okay.
It's finished.
So Firas independently set up the ingestion pipeline, did indexing as well as set up the UI, and went through the documentation that we had, and he said it's fairly extensive, and
documentation was
the
good.
only thing I think he had to probably tweak just a couple of lines.
Yes, couple of lines and some typos. So
Yeah, so that was
Documentation
not a
was
lot,
good,
so
yeah.
I think we have fairly good
yeah,
documentation.
good documentation.
So maybe then, we have it all in GitHub now, right?
I will post it there.
Yeah, so Firat is gonna make sure that we post it there, and, I think that's done and we can take it off our list. Also with the, JMIA special issue paper, for DataMed, we've had a couple of iterations here, and, the final draft for everybody's comments and corrections, we are hoping to send it out on May 25th. And the deadline for submission is 30th of May. So if we could get back, I mean, when we send it out, I guess we'll tell you the dates, but if you could get it back by 28th or so, that would be great. Also, the usability paper is all done, I think, right?
We're tweaking the end.
So I think we're more or less finalized that. So I didn't hear back from anybody with the input to the usability paper because Ram sent that out quite some time ago. And I sent it out to the CDT as well. So I think we are good to go. So Jeff, you are working on the ingestion and indexing pipeline paper too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
We almost have a draft of that one already, so.
Okay. With that, I think that those are all the action items that we wanted to talk about. So Craig, if you want to start your presentation.
I'm sorry, I had you muted. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my name is Craig Willis. I work at the National Center of Supercomputing Applications, NCSA, as a part of the National Data Service Group, and I'm also a doctoral student at the iSchool here working in information retrieval. And I guess I'll give an update on our pilot work, which is basically focuses on expansion models with respect to the BioCaddy Challenge program. And so I think, as I mentioned in the room here, is Mike Lambert, who is a research programmer with NDS. So some of this work is being done kind of under the auspices of NDS at NCSA, and along with Christine Kirkpatrick at SDSC. Garrick Sherman, who's not with us, who's a doctoral student at the iSchool, who focuses on document expansion models. And then Thuong Phan's joined us as a master's student also at the iSchool. And so what we've been working on so far, I think per earlier discussions with Anu and Kirk and crew, is packaging up the original code that we used for our submission to the BioCaddy Challenge. There's a GitHub repo with some documentation and hopefully some pretty reproducible scripts. Everything that we've done so far is based on the kind of Endry academic search engine. So we've got some development VMs set up on SDSC Cloud that we're now using to run the remainder of our evaluation as a part of the pilot. And so far we spent a fair amount of time now rerunning a lot of the models for kind of a comparative evaluation with the final test collection that came out of the challenge, as opposed to just the training data that we were given. And as we do this, we're posting some of this information to a page on Confluence here at NCSA. And we're trying to be fairly thorough in terms of running a variety of baselines and kind of some of the more state-of-the-art models from the academic and research side of things, and then also re-exploring the query expansion models that we submitted for the BioCaddy Challenge, which is effectively expanding the initial query using external collections like the PubMed Open Access, and then we've thrown in Wikipedia just for comparison. And that's using more traditional query expansion methods like RM3. And Garrick has been focusing on document expansion models, which is kind of his research area, which looks at actually putting some additional content into the documents during ranking as opposed to expanding the queries. Since we're working primarily in the injury space, we're starting to move towards kind of re-prototyping this work in Elasticsearch so that it's, I guess, more usable for the DataMed. I understand that you're working with Elasticsearch, and so Mike's done some preliminary work here on what it would take to actually add support for query expansion as a plugin to Elasticsearch, and we're kind of in the early stages of development there. So the evaluation process we've been using, we take the benchmark data and for now, and for our submission for the challenge, we just ignored the structure, which maybe isn't a great thing, but we just treat it as effectively a bag of words. We're now using the complete test collection, so all of the original training end test queries with all of the relevance judgments that came out of the challenge. We've opted to use manually shortened versions of the queries for our evaluations after determining that we felt that the original queries with I guess they contain phrases like find all of the data about X in all databases while they expressed a reasonable information need weren't exactly what the user would type into a search box. And that's just for transparency. I want to state that here when if I show some numbers. And we're rerunning our evaluation also with the original queries just for comparison, but it focused mainly on, at least in all of our tuning, on the shortened versions. And then we've expanded some of the metrics just to still trying to reconcile how we feel, what's the right metric to judge whether a model is actually effective or not within the BioCaddy challenge test set. We've got, and this is all stuff that's in that repo and in the documentation there, so we're using leave one query out cross-validation, and then everything here is just reported with just a paired t-test. So I'll run through a couple of slides here of results, and we ran through pretty much most of the models supported by injury and using their Okapi implementation over TF-IDF just because it tends to perform better, and comparing the different smoothing models and their query likelihood against the Okapi baseline, we found that, actually somewhat surprisingly, that with well-tuned models, none of these are performing any better than that baseline if it's tuned well. We did do one experiment with Krobit stemming, which suggests that probably with this collection there would be some benefit. I'm not actually sure whether the the DataMed system does stemming now or not. I don't think so. But from this kind of evaluation, at least it shows some improvement. So we ran a number of feedback models and then also added in there the sequential dependence model, which effectively uses kind of word position and ordering and weighted queries. And the PubMed expansion is what we submitted to the challenge. So given an initial query, run it against an external collection of PubMed documents, and then build a feedback query based on PubMed. And we do see significant gains still with the full collection at NDCG over the kind of a full 1,000 results, but still surprisingly not much change over a query likelihood baseline at the higher levels of precision or at the higher ranks, which are probably more important to the users of this system. And similarly with the document expansion models, effectively we see, with regard to this test collection, some gains over with NDCG over the full 1,000 results, but not at the higher levels or the higher ranks. So where we sit today, kind of a month in, is that in the end, and this is actually, we found a problem with our evaluation this week, so this is, if some of you had read these slides earlier, there's a change here, which is that the well-tuned baselines are really comparable across metrics, at least within the injury framework, and that stemming appears to be worthwhile. expansion models that are usually effective on their own, something like the relevance models, over the DataMed collection on its own or the BioCaddy test collection were not found to be effective, any more effective than baseline. And that the PubMed expansion model does provide some improvement, but it's questionable whether it's worth adding that additional computation just for kind of these limited gains. So what we have we were using this evaluation to make the decision of where to go next with respect to the pilot, and whether it was really worth the building in the expansion support into Elasticsearch, which we've concluded that that's probably still worthwhile, even if the PubMed collection isn't providing the best results, that we may be able to find other collections down the road, and that having traditional query expansion in Elasticsearch, which from my understanding doesn't exist right now, wouldn't be a bad thing to put the time into. And so obviously we've just explored PubMed and Wikipedia, but as a general purpose solution, you could plug in any Elasticsearch index and do expansion over that. So this would just be a general framework. Another thing which is also an open question for us is we're planning to develop more of an evaluation process around Elasticsearch instead of Indri. I have not come across any tools for that, and I'm not sure what the DataMed group has done with this respect. So obviously we use Indri just because all of the tooling is so very convenient for doing this type of evaluation. It puts things into Trek format. We've got a lot of tools at our disposal, but it seems that it would be better to do this within the Elasticsearch framework going forward. So to some extent, with regard to expansion, we're kind of back to the drawing board today. So I think we've recreated what we did for the original submission, and the results are, to some extent, significantly better, just from a statistical sense. But we'll be looking at kind of new ideas to explore here, and that could be anything from taking advantage of document structure or looking at other expansion sources. So that's the main gist of what we've done and where we're headed. Some open questions, and I'm not sure whether this is the right forum for this right now, is I think we'd love to be able to run the current kind of DataMed pipeline. I know, Anu, you'd given us access to GitHub, but we haven't been able to figure out how to get it things installed locally. And then hopefully an easy question is what Elasticsearch version you're running on your system now.
The Elasticsearch we are using now is version 1.7.5.
Okay.
At that time, it's like 2 years ago. Yeah, so we use that,
Okay.
and then we haven't updated yet.
That's very good to know then. So.
Yeah, in development, different development parts, we use more recent versions as well.
Okay. And I think our goal in this is just to make it whatever is the most useful in your current framework. So we gladly take any direction on that. And I just talked really quickly there, and I know I ran through a lot of slides, so I'm open any questions or feedback or ideas.
For the current DataMed pipelines, actually I have run the query on the benchmark data set using the current DataMed pipeline, and I have the result in a check format. Maybe I can share that with you, and then you can use that result to compare with your method.
That would be fantastic, yes.
So, Craig, this is Kirk. It looks like a lot of the things you tried, you're sort of discussing this, that sort of help in terms of the long tail evaluation sort of make things worse in terms of precision at 20. And I'm wondering if it might be worth pursuing some sort of like fallback strategy kind of approach where we would need some way to characterize when what some system, when it does well, when it's precise, and then fall back to something more that works on the long tail. So do you have any inkling, or have you done any look into when exactly does it perform well in the precision at 10 or 20, and when is it, where in the long tail are you really seeing the gain?
Oh, that's a great question, and I don't know. We haven't gone down that deep. If I'm understanding, it sounds a little bit like on the edge of query performance prediction, which is just being able to characterize for which queries the expansion would work for. And I think that would be a great next step for us. So no, we haven't dug into, clearly it's not at the 100 and above levels in that ranking, so it's deeper down now.
Yeah, I guess, and and also I guess the queries where the more advanced system does better, does it also improve the early, the top 20, or does it just sort of lose stuff in the top 20? And I guess it's just more investigation into sort of how that interplay works would be, because it's certainly possible to have you see people do it all the time. They'll have a highly precise retrieval system, which either is based on a number of results or some precision, some similarity threshold. They say everything above this go, and then they'll use more of a secondary system that's better with a long tail. And that's what you generally do with query expansion too, right? Because query expansion is usually recall at the cost of precision. So I guess it's just more exploration into sort of that, where it starts dropping off would be.
No, I fully agree. I'd say that from my experience at least in text collections, is that general models like ARM3 actually do pretty well across most metrics. So it's actually kind of surprising to me to see expansion not work at all with this data. So.
Yeah, I do frequently see with precision, with the precision at 10 or precision at 20, that will often times disagree with the other metric.
Sure.
Probably query expansion is one of the key culprits in that. Because I would think for our use case, precision at 20 is probably a pretty good metric to use.
Yeah.
We would still like to have the long tail, but I think it might be a little bit more complicated than just take the top 20 from the baseline and then take the 21 and up from the other system. Maybe just that's what I would do. I would just look into that a little bit more. Just try to figure
Okay.
out.
No, that's again, great advice. So.
So with installing the current pipeline, I think since Firas just finished doing it, maybe once he puts up the documentation, it would be more easy for you to do it as well. And I can put you in touch with Xiaoling. I guess you probably already have Xiaoling's email, but also
Yeah, she was on the original threads here, I think.
with Xiaoling and Firas, so you can, contact them if you have any questions.
Right. So, and just to the idea of working on maybe more of an evaluation framework around Elasticsearch, is that something you already have, or would that be worth us putting some effort into?
Have you done evaluation around Elasticsearch?
I don't think we have a convenient way to check. But we have an inconvenient way to do it, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to write scripts and then test. Yeah.
And I guess when I say evaluation framework, I'm talking more of, kind of parameter estimation, cross-validation, so that you can do this sort of comparative stuff with test sets like you've developed.
No, we don't have that yet.
Okay. Well, that's, again, we're, on the one hand, we're trying, we're enjoying the research side of it, but we also want to produce something that's kind of practically of use to you, that doesn't require you to, manage an entirely separate indexing technology and infrastructure. So we'll gladly take any kind of feedback and direction from you on what might be useful on that front. And for me, having access to something that's a little easier to use to do this type of evaluation around Elasticsearch would be great. So we'll keep it on the list. Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present, and I know you have a whole other meeting here that's many items ahead.
So does anybody have any other questions for Craig? Or Craig, do you have any other questions for us?
I don't think so.
Okay, so then so can you stop sharing so I can... So the other two discussion items were actually with reference to the FAIR supplement. I sent out the PDF. I do not know if anybody's gone through it, but what we do need to decide is what the requirements would be from both our end as well as theirs, I guess, for potential integration, and also the scope of exactly how far we will go in terms of integration. The other point of that transformation, so Jeff, one of the concerns that Alejandra and Philippe raised is the fact that in Elasticsearch after transformation, we have the DAS model, which is hierarchical, is getting flattened. So
Yep.
They would like to see if there's any workaround to maintain the hierarchical structure. So that's something they wanted to discuss. So I'll try and get in touch with them to make sure that they're going to be on the call probably next week.
Okay, we can always schedule an off call at a time that works better for the UK.
Okay.
For the first one, it's mainly I think around for the FAIR supplement. I mean that's we're talking mainly about the
identifiers. The prefix.
Yeah, the prefix commons piece. I think the main thing there is to get the list of prefixes that for the sources that we should use, and then we can embed them within the within the indices. So I mean, it's mainly more of a the cataloging piece and tracking those down and then integrating them into the data, which should be fairly straightforward.
But actually, I've also had some comments from Julie where they're talking about the way the URL on DataMed is itself displayed. So is that something that we would want to incorporate as part of?
Yeah. So the question is, so that was should there be a URL that has the prefixed identifier as the primary URL? I mean, there are two ways to get at that. One is to have a resolution service where if you go to that, it will redirect to the appropriate search page. Another way to do that is to, rewrite, in the current UI, I think a lot of the options are on the URL itself. So maybe first step would be to have a, more of a
Yeah, I think maybe use
resolution type service.
use the resolution maybe the easier way to do this. We just redirect the URL.
Yeah.
The other thing that Julie asked about, which I think is something that we had talked about, is whether we have a URL checking script, because a lot of the URLs seem to be broken.
I have done that but I haven't put into the
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So every time there is a link, I will check if I will send a request to see if there's an error. If the error, I will put a log text after the URL showing that the link is broken. Is this?
Yeah, so if you look at her comment here, where she's talking about links that kind of may be wrong or dead.
Here I can only check if bad, but if it's long, then I cannot check.
So I think some of the things is more to be like, uppercase versus lowercase and underscore instead of space kind of linking issues.
Okay, I can take a look at
Yeah,
this.
if you can take a look at that, that would be great. So maybe is it better for us to ask Julie to work or look at stuff maybe in the development server, since that's probably more updated than the production server is, right?
Right.
Okay. So otherwise, mainly from them, what we need would be something that would get implemented at the back end, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
And are you in touch with them to get that, or is that something, because I think next week in the CDT, they are going to be joining in on the call to talk about deliverables from them as well as timelines, because if we want this to get implemented by before we release version 3, we need the information and everything else from them, and we need sufficient time for us to be able to implement it and also test it out.
Yeah, so we can talk about it next week.
Okay. So what, Jeff, what kind of a timeline would be good for you in terms of being able to get everything done maybe by mid-July so that we do the testing?
Yeah, it depends what is needed, right? So, for example, to do some unflattening, that is just, on the export side.
Okay. No, I'm not talking about the DAX transformation stuff. I'm talking about just the prefix comments part of it.
About the which?
The first one.
Oh, for that, I mean, we could. I'll have to check with Barak, but to do some of the minor updates, like just updating the identifiers and things like that, that can be done pretty quickly.
Okay.
Because it doesn't need to do a full run through in that sense.
Okay. So maybe next week when we talk to them, if you can let them know that probably this is when we would require whatever they're going to provide us by the latest, then that would be good for us so that we have the timeline in place. So I think since we have a little bit of extra time, we can talk about this part. We have the repository expansion, so I see Humi's on the call. So Humi, your team is working on mapping.
Mapping and transformation. We are working on several things at the same time.
Okay.
And then we can maybe do 2 or 3 more over the summer. But I'm not quite sure which ones are the best one to work on.
So I think the idea was that we would go for the Common Fund repositories first.
So I'm looking at the new tracking spreadsheet.
Okay, so let me, I don't know if I have that open here, probably not. So is there anything that you think would be, depending on the expertise of the people who are mapping, that it would be convenient or more useful for you to pick up?
I must say everything is equally challenging. So, okay, so NIH list tab. So these are the ones, the funded through Common Fund, or how do I?
So let me just open the, give me a minute, let me open
Okay.
the.
Oh, I see. You are looking. Okay, so I'm looking at different spreadsheet. I was looking at the latest one, track repositories to be indexed.xl, which is last updated on May 16th.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, this, oh, okay. I think this may not be, I know I probably put in some stuff here, but I'm not sure if that's the correct one that we want to look at. There's some additional information on here,
Yeah.
but basically, this is the older list in terms of saying it's from the comments. I think the comments list has changed. a little bit.
Okay, but I found this spreadsheet is more useful because it is more clear to see which one is already worked on, which ones are not. So, okay, so do you want me to look at the old one, the
Yeah.
one that you are showing right now?
Yes, please. Because these common fund repositories are the updated list that we got.
Okay. Okay, then we will pick up 2 or 3 more from this list.
Okay.
In the meantime, we will probably be able to finish the ones that we are working on by the end of this month.
So that would be how many,
So let me open the slide that I sent for today's meeting.
oh, is that in the EC meeting?
Yeah. But there are a few that we are waiting for the repository owner's input, which we don't have much control. But other than that, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 more. Yeah, fly-based mouse genome informatics, zebrafish, Candida genome database. Something we can finish pretty soon.
Okay. 4 plus 3, 7. So Jeff, do you think we would be able to get to 100 by the time we release version 3? Oh,
Gone.
Jeff,
Oh, sorry, I was sorry, I muted.
you muted.
What are we at now? We're at around
We are at how many now?
60,
70.
we're in the 60s, I think, maybe?
No, we are at 70 apparently.
70, okay.
So if from UCSD we get like 7 more and we have 1, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, we may get close.
Okay.
It's just that as we, as Hyun Yi said, as we sort of go down the list and get to the more, the more indirect ones, it takes longer and longer because there's more interaction required sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we've picked a lot of the low-hanging fruit already.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, then we will try to index as many as we can over the summer.
Yeah. And the other thing that I did want to mention is we've had 3 more requests for indexing, right? In the repository submission, from the repository submission.
Yeah, and Figshare should be straightforward.
Figshare, we already have it?
I thought we did,
From
didn't we?
data side.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so we already have that.
So, but Jeff, is it worthwhile to get it from the primary repository?
We can we can take a look when Barack gets back. We can take a look to see what's different.
Okay. Because for SimTK and something else, we decided to go with the primary repository, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes the primary has has more information.
Right. So I think for now that's the list that we have. So we just take it from there. Okay. so with re-annexing, we already talked about that. So for the pilot project integration, did you get a chance to talk to Chris Mungal about his pilot project? This is for Jeff. The other two, I was going to contact them, and I have to say I haven't contacted them again yet. So probably.
Yeah, sorry, I was coughing. So I reached out to Chris, but the person he's been working on that was traveling, and so we're supposed to have a follow-up meeting so I can ping them again. I think he should be back.
Okay.
That's what you were talking about, right?
Yeah. For Ram and Gochan, I'll contact them. I haven't done that yet. So, for the similar data set, we were going to expand it, and I think Xiaoling did expand them to a large extent, right?
So it's similar data set for version 2.0. So after we update the index, we need to run it again to put the new index.
Okay. And I think what would be important is to actually work on the reporting of broken links next, which is probably already something that you worked on, right? And let's take a look at the links that we already have. And based on Divakar's program, I think we'll be able to do the most access data sets as well. And once we have the complete set from Jeff with the NLP fields in it, then we should be able to. I was told that we already have the word cloud implementation written. I mean, the code's all done. We just need to plug it in.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Kirk, with the challenge results integration, I know Trevor and you were supposed to.
Yeah, I was supposed to send something to Charlie, and I haven't. So Trevor and I, we met and we looked through all the papers and basically made a big list of like the features of the various systems and to kind of come up with our own like priorities of what should be best to implement. And I think Charlene was out then when we did it, and now she's back, so I need to include her with that. And the goal is basically to have a list that's basically how much would this improve, or how much potential does this particular feature have to improve the system, and also how easy is this feature to integrate, and basically to try to do catch some low-hanging fruit, and then prioritize what to work on, just based on the amount of time that Charlie has.
Okay. And the API part is all completely done.
Yeah. I use the Swagger to show the document. Yeah. So it should be finished this week.
Okay. And the tracking system, I know that we've got it implemented, and in terms of visualization and analysis of results, did Divakar give all his code to you yet, or?
No, not
No?
yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll ask him to provide you code. I know he was trying to get access to the back end.
Now I copy the data from the production server to our server, then he can access it to it. So
Okay.
he can run the visualization and the analysis.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he can play around and see if there are any issues that come up, right?
Right.
Okay. So we haven't really started looking into the feature where we provide alerts to new results from saved searches for our users. I think that probably comes a little later after we are done with all the things that you guys have already started working on. And the other thing that probably we need to look into is the Working Group 9 recommendations. Sitemap updating is done. Schema.org work is being done by Firas. And the link out for new repositories. Kathy was asking about Dataverse.
I check it, but there's no PubMed ID in our metadata. for
From Dataverse,
Yeah,
so we can't do it.
right.
Okay. So maybe we can write back to her and say, these are the ones that we have, which is not, you already don't have,
Okay.
and that have a PubMed ID, which means that we can provide the link out then
Okay.
and see whether they're interested in doing those.
Okay.
And I think that's probably most of it that's completed. The user studies is almost all done. Obviously, they're writing up the paper. I do not know if we'll have time to do any studies to go back to our original people that we talked to see what they think about the new things after the recommendations have been implemented, but we'll see that happens after July, if it happens at all. And I think that's about it. Also a reminder, please deposit all your source code in GitHub and make sure you have it cleaned up, because once the project is over, we'll probably make everything public. We won't have any more private repositories. And that's it. Are there any other questions or anything else that we should talk about today? Apparently not. So if not, we finish early then. 4 minutes early. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.